host, Elliott, Headley, and myself, Miranda Orth. Yep, here he is with his retro TV.
Yeah, again.
It's episode 15 called Creative Minds. Sorry, Creative Minds.
Yeah,
And
right.
we have two guests on the show today.
Yeah, we have two well-known actors in the Vancouver. Vancouver. We have Shawn Macdonald and Gary Jones.
That's right. And I'm also going to come up with a couple of creative mind ideas of my own that I've had help with and stuff like that. Even though it's not play related, it can be anything really.
Yeah, it could be anything you want it to be.
Any creative mind thing you do between now and whatever time or something.
But look, this podcast, this is from since March. This is creative.
Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of advocacy in different areas, like reporting for a sports event I did.
Yeah,
things like that.
I heard from some people that they very interested in our podcast.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, they are interested in that, and we've got we had about what, Elliot, 9 orders of the t-shirts.
We have tons of orders,
but I think the first batch was 9.
It just got increased a bit more.
Oh, by how many more now? 2?
2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 16.
16. Wow. Huh.
Yeah, I still have to order those shirts because
wow,
they're very expensive.
So yeah, because today's the last episode, Ellie and I thought of wearing our podcast t-shirts.
Yeah.
We thought we'd dedicate it for this episode. So there you go.
And also, this is gonna be a fun episode because we have some interesting people on.
Yeah, not just talking about our topic, creative minds, but also some fun things in between as well.
Yeah.
What they and other people have thought over about our season in general.
And we're going to take a small break from this episode to season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although we did have a bit of a break for a couple weeks before today.
Well, the reason was that one of our guests was delayed it because he was working.
That's right. And in the meantime, you did your music video.
Yeah, that was super helpful. So
the break, that little break gave you an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Plus, they give me some time to just think of other projects I want to do.
Yeah. Yep. Including maybe getting back to that book we were starting to try to do before I moved.
Yeah, that sucks when the whole pandemic happened. We can't even see each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that sucks. Oh
well. Talking about good news, that my half brother Eden is arriving on Sunday.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He's coming from all the way from
US.
Michigan, USA.
Michigan, USA. Huh, interesting. I didn't know he lived there. I think I saw something on his Facebook page about how he's married and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's going to be exciting to see him.
Yeah, you were recently saying you're digging into your family history a little bit
Yeah.
more besides the music project, and it's not just because of your half brother. It's obviously something else got interesting.
Well, I was just wondering about my dad's side of the family, how far we can go back to, and I found out so far we've gone back to like 1835 ish,
Wow.
around there.
Huh.
Yeah, and yeah, it's very interesting, and I try to go back further than 1835 to like see how far we can go to.
Oh, wow. Huh.
And my nanny, she told me that we have a family Bible,
Oh,
and she sent me some photos, and it's around like early 13th century, I want to say.
okay.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Huh.
How about you? Have you done any research for your family?
My dad does tons of genealogy search, and normally, um, I'm not as interested in it as he is. The only part I go up to, if anything, is just up to my mom's mother, meaning my grandmother
Hmm.
on my mom's side of the family. That's all I really go to, and also for my dad's side, excuse me, I only go up to uh I only go up to like his parents.
It's
That's
funny.
basically all I know because everything else I just don't know these other people,
Yeah,
right? So to me it just doesn't really seem as relevant, although my
yeah,
dad loves it that many people that he watches on TV are related to my mother in some way.
yeah. But the funny thing is, um, I found out in my grandfather's notes that my ancestors went to served in a castle in England called Alwick Castle, and I never been to that castle before.
Hmm.
So that's gonna be interesting to go to.
Huh. Gonna just put a pause on this for a few minutes until we have our guests come on the show.
Yeah. So it's gonna be Gary Jones and Shawn Macdonald. And
So
we
we'll see them in a few minutes.
all right. See you guys
Everyone,
soon.
we're back on Zoom now. We've got our two guests,
Gary
Shawn
Jones and Shawn
Macdonald
Macdonald.
and Gary Jones.
Yeah.
They are
So
joining us for episode Creative Minds, and they're going to talk about projects they've done. And Elliott knows them from plays like his Mice and Men play and things.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you guys start doing acting in your careers?
Well, first, let me just say thank you so much to the both of you for inviting us to come onto
Yeah.
your podcast. You know, this is the first podcast that I've ever been on. So,
What?
yeah, it's a big deal for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that. So Gary, why don't you start off? When did you get into acting?
Um, well, I sort of got into acting kind of accidentally. I was working in the field of advertising, working at a newspaper, designing ads and writing the kind of copy that you would put in an ad, and I just happened to see an ad for not one that I'd written, a separate ad that was written for improv comedy, and I just had this little voice in my head said, "You have to do this." It told me it was actors have talked about that in the past, and people, some people go into fields where they go, a voice said to me, "You need to do this," and I had that experience. A little voice said, "You've got to do this," and so but I didn't really know what improv was. That was the strange thing. I just knew that I had to do it. So because I didn't know what it was, I called up a friend of mine who was a very funny guy, told stories. He was hilarious. And his name was Kevin. And I said, "Kev, you have to do this with me, because I need to do this. And he said, okay, what is improv comedy? And I said, I have no idea, but we're going to do it. And so we really, I know what you're doing, Elliot. You're just going, what, are you crazy? But yes, there was a craziness to it. But that's how I got into it, was by taking improvisational workshops. And then I did it long enough that I got hired by a theater to say, we would like you to be part of our theater company. And when that happened, I then quit my other job and then became really more of a full-time actor. Shawn, over to you.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
I've been involved with theater from like kind of a young age. I did theater in high school, like so many of us. And then when I went to college in Quebec, which is where I'm from, these couple friends of mine and one of the English teachers formed this really weird little theater company, and we would do like really bizarre plays. But people came to see them and thought we were like kind of cool / weird. So that I did that. And then when I went to university, where I did not study theater, I studied philosophy for some unknown reason. I did a lot of theater there too. And my brother was working in the summertime at a dinner theater company. He's also really involved in theater. And I ended up getting a job with him between university years one summer. And then I was in my third year of my degree. And then my brother got this job offer to go to Regina, of all places, and start up a dinner theater company there, and asked me if I wanted to go with him. And so I quit my degree and I went off and worked for a year in Regina at this dinner theater company, doing a lot of improv comedy. And then after 9 months, I said, I need to get out of Regina immediately. and I just was like, I'm going to move to like a city and become an actor. And it was either Toronto or Vancouver.
Regina not being a city, obviously.
That's correct. There's no reason for that city to be located where it is. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so I moved to Vancouver because I knew one person here. I had one friend in Vancouver. And so then I moved here and spent a lot of time at the beginning just struggling and figuring out what I was going to do. But eventually I did a workshop that the Vancouver Theatre Sports League was holding for actors, which is where I met Gary Jones. I got kind of fast tracked to the main stage of that theater company. And then before I knew it, I was performing almost every weekend with that guy. And the rest is history. We became best buds and we've been friends ever since. And this is many,
that was in one of our questions.
I'm
that
sorry,
was going to be.
I jumped the gun.
That was going to be one of the other questions. Would you say you two are best friends? I guess, Shawn, you just answered that.
Well, I answered it for me. I don't.
And Gary, you would have the same answer too, hey? Would you two consider yourself best friends?
Miranda, I'm going to have to call you privately on this because I don't want to embarrass Shawn.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No, Miranda, I'm kidding.
Okay, you scared me for a minute. I thought I got in trouble there for a minute.
Okay, I'm not going to do anything like that anymore, Miranda. Shawn is my best friend. He's my.
I had thought so.
He's my dearest friend.
We've been friends for a long time.
Like, what did you say? Close to 40 years, Shawn? Something like that. It's between 35 and 40 years.
Yeah, it's somewhere up in there for sure. It was getting up there. Anyway, and we've been friends like, when you're friends with someone for that long, sometimes, you lose touch and you go, and, there have been ebbs and flows in terms of how much contact we have. But honestly, in terms of like, when I look at my friendships, Gary's somebody who's always been present in my life. And we've been through, we did, well, I know there's questions coming up around that, but we've done a lot together and we're still best buds after all this time.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm going, I'm going to have dinner with Shawn on Monday.
Yeah. That's a good one.
We hang out a lot, and that was one of the things that I think Shawn will agree to. Back in the day when we were doing a lot of improv at Theatre Sports, I don't know what it's like with the people that came after us, but the group that I worked with that included Shawn, we would go to movies together, we'd have lunch and dinner, we'd have parties at each other's houses. So we became really close friends. And in becoming each other's friends, we got to know each other, and we got to know like our styles of humor and how and what and our timing. And then that actually translated onto stage, so that everything fed into, like, the staged work fed into our friendship, and our friendship fed into our stage work. It was like kind of really cool, right, Shawn?
Totally.
It was absolutely like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that to this day. And Shawn is one of the few people that well, back in the day when we were improvising, I didn't really make the connection that when you're improvising, you're writing in the moment. You're writing a scene on stage in the moment. You're actually creating, right? And so Shawn and I didn't realize that we were actually becoming writers. And so Shawn and I then decided to actually write a couple of plays. And we wrote some plays together, and it was just a fantastic experience. It was just the best.
Wow.
He
Yeah.
actually hit a other question we're going to ask you guys was how you guys
Right.
ever want to work together on a project?
Go ahead, Shawn.
Why, yes, we have. The play that we wrote together, for the first play that we wrote together, was a play called World's Greatest Sky, and we wrote it for the Fringe Festival in, oh gosh, I don't remember the year.
It was like 93, Shawn.
Yeah. I think it might have been, that was when I think we might have written it a little bit earlier than that, because, well, anyway, I can't remember when it was at the Arts Club, but we wrote it for the Fringe, and it was a huge hit. Like, it was, we got pick of the Fringe, we sold out all our shows. And then we got approached by the Arts Club to expand it into a full-length play, because it was a one-act when it was first written. And so we went away for 4 days and wrote, remember we went to Tofino, and
Right.
we
That's
wrote
right.
we wrote for that concentrated period of time. I mean, we did writing outside of that chunk too, but we really did a lot of work at that trip, and expanded it to a full-length play. And then
Meaning,
the Arts,
when he says full length, he means 2 acts. It went from a 1 act to a 2 act with an intermission.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, because the Arts Club needed that for their theater. They always have that structure for their plays. At least they did then. So, and then it ran for 4 months. They kept holding it over. We had a long run through the summer. We had that was one of the best summers of my life.
Oh,
We had this great group. There was me and Gary. We were in the play as well.
yeah.
And our 2 friends, Ellie and Randy, were also in it. And we just had the best time. And then we got nominated for some Jessie Awards, including the Jessie Award for Outstanding Original Script.
Wow.
And we won. We won that year. We got that
year. It was the
award.
most amazing experience to have just thought about this kind of like funny little idea that we had. We were out having dinner. We came up with this idea, and we started just kind of jamming as we were eating. We were having pizza.
Mhm.
We
made notes on napkins, and that was our first draft.
I took the napkins home. I put them in my sock drawer, and I remember a couple of months later, Shawn called me up, and he said, "Hey, remember that idea that we had, that we were joking around about in the restaurant? Do you still have those napkins?" And I said, "Yeah, they're still in my sock drawer." And I pulled them out, and then we got together and we just went back through them. And then we just started fleshing them out and making it more of a play. But what was so wonderful, and for me, I felt so fortunate to be able to work with somebody like Shawn, who's such a great improviser. We were basically we were improvising it kind of as we were writing it, right, Shawn? Like that's the way our ideas came. We weren't stuck. I didn't feel stuck at all writing that play, like, what are we going to do next? It was like, what about this? It was almost like we were on stage together, but except we were writing a play. It was very cool.
So you guys just answered another question about yeah, I would think you guys did a lot of stuff together. So that means they must have done a lot of directing plays together then.
not
Sounds
so
like
much.
because
No,
have you
no.
two directed a play before?
Good question. And we both have. So Gary, why don't you talk about your experience?
Well, I would say one of the first times that I ever had a chance to direct anything was back at Theater Sports when I had written a whole pile of sketches, just little comedy sketches, and we turned that into like a stage sketch show that Shawn was in, and I think it was called "Stop It, You're Causing a Scene." That was the title of this play, this collection of sketches. Shawn was one of the actors in that, and that was great.
Oh.
I haven't really done a ton of directing until I was fortunate enough, obviously, you know this, Miranda,
Yep.
to then direct Elliott in John Steinbeck's play, famous play of Mice and Men. And that came about just because I saw him with his best friend Isaac, and it occurred to me one day. I went, "Oh man, they kind of remind me of Lenny and George." And then I went, "Wait a sec. They sort of do look. They really do look like Lenny and George." And you know, Elliott has challenges, and Lenny has challenges, and George is shorter than Lenny, and I kind of went, "Wait a sec. This is too weird. They are actually like them." Isaac had a small theater company. He went to Studio 58 and was an actor. Elliott has acted with the Stage Door people, along with yourself, Miranda. So so I knew that Elliott had some experience acting. So it wasn't like he was brand new to it. He'd been on stage, and I basically approached the two of them and I said, "What do you think about this idea?" And I had to be real clear with Elliott and say, "Elliott, this is not a comedy. You are not going to be getting laughs in this." Because that's what Elliott was used to, right, at Stage Door. Because you guys do a lot of light entertainment and comedy stuff. But that experience was one of the greatest experiences of my career, to be able to direct that play, which is a fantastic play. And I'd never really spent time with it or gone through it the way I had to. But then to work with Elliott was like chef's kiss. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, and Elliot had asked me to do this usher role, and as part of that, I had to do a very long speech.
Oh, as the usher, yes, that's right.
I had
Miranda,
a huge
you were
speech to do.
there. Yes.
Heard me in the stage. I was doing a bit long speech, and I was making a joke about how Heritage Hall was so old, and you'd have to watch out for things, otherwise it would break.
You don't want to break Heritage Hall.
No.
Um,
But yeah.
And Shawn?
Sorry, Elliot, did you want to jump in there?
No, you were going to talk about directing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I directed shows back in the Theater Sports days too, not for Theater Sports, but I directed a colleague of ours. Actually, this is just stepping back a little earlier. Before Gary and I wrote World's Greatest Sky, we actually co-wrote with a third person, Christine Lippa. We wrote her fringe show, which was a one-woman show called The Vacant Bachelor, and I directed that. So that was kind of like my first directing job, like that.
I forgot
really
you directed that.
kind of like just sort of getting used to the whole idea. I haven't directed that much. It's not been a real focus for me in my career. However, more recently, I have started to direct some shows. I directed a production of The Glass Menagerie in 2015, I think it was, or 2014 maybe. Yeah, the December of 2014. And then I also directed a play called Bright Blue Future for a theater company called Hardline, which was this really edgy, intense play about millennials in the party scene and their sort of aimless lack of hope that they have moving into their adulthood. And that was really kind of an intense thing. But even more recently than that, and this is something that I think you'll both be interested in, is I led the devising, like the creation process for a play, and directed the play for a theater company called Real Wheels, which is a theater company that creates work about the disability experience. And so we did a play basically it's just a kind of a review style, series of songs and sketches about music and how people's experience of music. So we started that in January of 2020, or February, I guess. And then we were, creating it and meeting twice a week. And then COVID hit, of course. And so we pivoted to Zoom and just kind of kept the writing process going, and then kind of finished the first draft of the script, and then we shut down. But then the theater company revived the project in, let's see, when was that? I guess in the spring this year. And so we decided to do an online version of it. So I directed that, and that was really, really exciting. And I was really, really proud of the show, but it was extremely complicated. I won't talk forever about it, but I just want to mention this part just because, so you have a sense of what it was like. So we're in COVID, everyone is in isolation. And we have scenes and songs. So there's singing and music, and we have to record this piece with everybody in their own places. So just for the music, this is what we had to do. We had to rehearse on Zoom, which is singing on Zoom is impossible in a group. As you know, and sorry, you can't even talk at the same time on Zoom.
Oh.
So we tried to do that. We sent people tracks. We recorded the music director recorded the tracks, sent them the tracks. They'd learn the tracks. They'd learn their part. They'd learn their harmony or whatever. And then we'd sing. Then we get them to sing along. We sent them equipment. We sent them microphones and stuff. We get them to sing along to the track, recording their voices. So we get all the audio tracks, and then they had to mix the track, then send it back to them, and then record the video of them lip syncing to the track.
Oh, they lip synced?
Yeah, that was all. We couldn't do any of it live. You can't in Zoom. It just sounds terrible. I mean, there's technology that you can use to mix it, but we didn't have any access to that.
Because I saw the show, and I had no idea that they were lip syncing. That means that they did an incredible, outstanding job of lip syncing. Wow.
I know.
I was totally fooled.
I know. And not only that, but these are all folks with a wide range of disability, right? There's people with blindness. There are people who are wheelchair users. There's a whole range of disability. And so there was a lot of accommodation that we had to do in terms of making sure that they had access to the equipment they needed to use, or they had assistance when they were recording. Some of them had care workers at their disposal that they could work with. But it was an amazing experience. It took many hours to get that video, in shape and edited. But it was a real joy, and I'm really lucky because I've formed a relationship with that theater company, and I'm going to be teaching the acting module as part of the Real Wheels Academy. They're starting an acting school in the fall, and I'm going to be teaching the acting. They have acting, movement, and voice, and I'll be doing the acting stuff. So I'm very excited about continuing my connection with the disability community.
Okay, last big.
Can I also jump in with one thing that just to sort of add on to what Shawn said, and I'm kind of getting the difference between maybe our two experiences here, is that Shawn directed and created a show where all the performers were experiencing some physical challenge or some form of disability, whereas my experience directing of Mice and Men had more of a sort of a mix between non-disabled people or non-challenged people and Elliott, who was incredibly playing a character who was challenged. So I had an actual actor who was challenged playing a character who was challenged. And I know you're interviewing Shawn and I, guys, but at this point, I would love to just ask Elliott what his experience was coming into a play, playing one of the central characters with a group of how was the experience for you? Like even starting with like the read through and rehearsals and everything. How was that for you, Elliott?
It's a totally different experience than the comedy plays me and Miranda did over the years.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
like we read on like over and
Skits.
over the table and
Oh, the table read.
the table reads, and
Yeah.
we keep rehearsing it over and over again. And some words from that play, like I still get say like ain't or I
So
still say,
basically, it was interesting but challenge in terms of trying to read it over and over because some of the words you couldn't understand, eh?
yeah, because some words are so old fashioned. Is how to say.
Right. But what one thing I do remember is when I would approach when I auditioned the other actors, and I said, listen, this is a very famous play. It's a great play, but I just want you to know that the person playing Lenny is a person with challenges, and they didn't skip a beat. They were like, I'm in. I want to do this. These actors wanted the chance to work with a challenged actor, and it really brought like such a lovely kind of joy to the experience. But I was more interested in if you had a tough time, or because I know that you and I sometimes we sort of butted heads occasionally over you learning lines, and you
Yeah.
would sit on the porch learning your lines, then you'd just fall asleep and have a nap for like 6 hours. Because remember, and you'd just be like, "This is too tired." You found it exhausting just learning your lines.
Yeah, because it's totally different experience and terminology to say.
Yeah, but well, you did such a good job.
And I would have to, and I actually, Gary, just step in here for a minute. I actually helped Elliott rehearse one of the parts. One day when I came over to his house, I helped him rehearse part of it.
That's right. You read lines with him, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was one of the
Yeah.
other characters.
So
Yeah.
grateful that you did that, Miranda. Everybody pitched in to create such success for Elliott. It was just lovely. Really.
But you know,
Yeah,
the thing too,
and the other characters involved too. Like there was a Isaac and I think it was Taylor Elliott and a bunch of
Yeah.
other characters.
Yeah.
the thing too with lines is, we as actors who are, work professionally, we've been learning lines our whole life. And you start when I was younger than you probably, Elliot, when I started having to learn lines for plays. And what happens is, over the long term, your short-term memory gets really good and you get better and better at learning them. But it's really hard to go from 0 to of mice and men. Like, that's a lot of words. That's a lot of words for anybody to learn. And if you're not used to memorizing, and if that part of your brain isn't, in shape from learning lines for many years, it's really hard. It's really hard to all of a sudden like have to do that. So congratulations on doing that. It's really tough.
Yeah, I said to Gary before the play ever started, I said, I want actors that respected the people with disabilities. Now I shun them or anything like that. So that's good.
Yeah, and this show's about like not having it one-sided coin, like people just like Elliot and myself and other challenged people, and then others being people like um Gary and Shawn and whoever else with no challenges, right? So we just wanted to make it even so it's not like judging of faring one person over the other, because that's kind of useless.
And I have to say that Elliott did such an amazing job. And this was something that I didn't realize would occur for me, that I had an idea of what Lenny would be like. This is an interesting process. So I go there and I'm thinking, oh, Lenny's big and he's this and he's that. That's my idea of what I think Lenny is. And the more I worked with Elliott, that sort of fell away. And I kind of went, wait a second. Elliott is Lenny. Like, he's his own Lenny. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And it kind of freed me up, man, because then I could just direct the play and not worry about whether or not Elliott was doing that character, because he literally, for me, was Lenny. And I think that was the feedback I got from a lot of people who saw that play, was that they believed so much that Elliott and Isaac, like as Lenny and George, because they're best friends in life, kind of like Shawn and I. It's in a way that's a similar experience to what Shawn and I experienced, Elliott. That we did a play together, we wrote together, we performed together, and we were best friends. You did that with Isaac, and it came across on stage. People picked that up. They went, "These guys know each other." It was just so wonderful.
Who out of the two of you guys, right, is the best at improving, or is it equally best?
No, it's Gary for sure. It's Gary for sure. It's not even a question. He has more experience than I do. He's improvised for more years. He's naturally funny. He can walk on stage and just instantly be funny. He's got a really quick, free associative mind. He does great characters. I had my time. I had my time as an improviser, but I think it's really Gary. Gary's definitely the improv master in this particular pairing, for sure. Like not even a question.
Well,
I'm way more nervous on stage as an improviser than Gary is. He's so calm and comfortable and loves it.
Wow, that's so kind. Wow, what lovely words.
It's true.
That's interesting. And as for Elliott and I think our creative minds, especially for me, because I've had to deal with things a lot in terms of overcoming challenges of like how I was brought up and stuff. And so mine is mostly, I would say my creativity, mine is mostly based on trying to advocate for things that I feel are right or wrong based on what services I need and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Like for let's say medication stuff, or just in general advocating for those with intellectual challenges and so forth and whatever else, especially when it comes to finding jobs and things. And that's what you'll be hearing in the rest of the series earlier on before today's episode.
And so
Yeah.
Margaret,
So-
you come at your creative work from that perspective, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
An advocate for
Yeah, because as Elliott knows also, not many people can really understand what it's like to live in our life, for example. Like at a job, you think that you're getting treated the best service possible, but then it's not always like that. And then sometimes you're turned away and you have to start again in a different approach or do something else.
Sorry, Miranda, I called you by the wrong name.
I didn't even notice you called me by the wrong name. What was it?
Nothing. You didn't hear anything. It's all good.
Okay. I've been called wrong names before, by the way. I was called.
It's Miranda.
That's right. I've been called wrong names before, though.
You're the only Miranda that I know, and I love that name. I think it's a great name. Miranda. Isn't that a great name? You know, I also want to do a shout out here for the Stage Door Theater Company that you guys both belong to.
Yeah.
Because we've seen, Shawn and I have both talked about, we've come and seen your productions.
3 of the productions, yeah.
And what I found incredible about the shows, not just, you can go and see a show and go, oh yeah, no, that was a fun show. But if you really, really think about what Stage Door does to create those shows, they take a group of people with the most diverse challenges. You've talked to me about this, Elliott, before, about how they all have their different things. I mean, your challenges are not the same as Miranda's, and Miranda's challenges are not the same as somebody else. But you all have to learn the same material. So that means that you're all going to have different challenges learning the material, understanding the comedy of it, blocking, delivering lines, everything. And so I can only imagine what that would be like to write a show that includes everybody, that has something for everybody, and then rehearse people and then put on a production and have it run for like however many it is, like 3 nights or 4 nights or whatever. That to me is like, I applaud Stage Door so much for what they're able to do, and you bring it.
Yeah, or even with like videos, monologues, we just recently started trying to do again, instead of just like a full live play, we actually break it into parts so that there's also video and it doesn't go get so boring.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's cool.
Remember, Elliot? We did
Yeah.
that Skiterageous Outrageous, and we had different videos in between each segment of a live performance.
Yeah.
So
Before
that's what
yeah.
that's format.
before we
cool.
did live performances, I mean video performances.
yeah.
I was away for 6 weeks because I was doing a course, and I read the script on during those 6 weeks, and I came back and I remember every single line.
That's what I
you
do
took-
too.
you-
I go away sometimes, like on vacation or whatever, and then I read my lines over without much help because if I get help, I get distracted. So I've always been like that, very focused on work and things like that. So yeah.
Cool.
I have 2 more questions before you guys go.
This is a speed round.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
What-
Elliot.
Lightning round.
What's the best review you guys got, and what's the worst review you guys got?
Oh.
the best review. or
Critics
worst
is what he's
review?
talking about.
I
It
can
could
do
be
I can do
good
them
or
really
bad.
fast. Real fast. Best review was for when I did another play that I wrote with Gary called Fear Not, which was a one-person show, and the line in the review was Shawn Macdonald is a star. That was the best review I ever got. The worst review was by the same reviewer
For the same show.
for a different show. Different show.
Shawn Macdonald's a
where
black hole.
I played Renfield in the Dracula story, and he said that I was like really boring and not scary and couldn't figure out what the hell I was doing.
And yours, Gary?
To be honest, I can't. I don't feel like that I had a standout review. I think for the most part, I have been. If I've been reviewed, I've usually been reviewed kind of like favorably. Like they'll say Gary Jones was good in this role or something like that. Like nothing like Gary Jones is a star. I never had that. So that's. I remember reading that review for Shawn, and I was like, "Holy moly!" And Shawn was fantastic in that show. He really. I think that the worst review I ever got was from a Fringe play that I did, and I joined the Fringe play because somebody had quit the play, and they asked me to join, and I was kind of puffed up, and my ego sort of stepped in and said, "Oh, look at that! You're being asked. You're the person." And in retrospect, I wish I hadn't responded that way because I didn't really like the play. I liked all the people in it because I knew a lot of the people in it, but I didn't like the play. And so that kind of showed. And about halfway, a bunch of the ways into the rehearsal, I wanted to leave the play also. I wanted to get out of the play like the other person did.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me. They said, "No, it's too late. We can't find anybody else now. We're too far into rehearsal." So I was like, "Oh my God, I'm stuck in this play now." And so I stayed in the play, and then the review came out and it said Gary Jones gives a mean and stingy performance, meaning that I didn't really give much. I wasn't generous. He didn't like what I did. He thought I was like, kind of all tight and whatever. And that was the one that stood out. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel bad about that review because I thought, you know what? He's actually being honest. Like I did give a mean and stingy performance, and he kind of called me out on it, and I learned from that to never accept a role or never do something that I'm not really invested in or that I really want to be a part of, that I'm enjoying, So it was a good lesson for me. You know what I mean?
Here's a question for you guys. What's the most iconic line from a TV show or play you guys did?
Oh my God, Elliot, that's a tricky question.
Yeah.
I don't have one just like at the top of my mind, so I'm gonna have to think about that. Like from a show that we were in.
Yeah.
Or a show that we were in, or a TV show. Like we have. Shawn and I haven't really done a TV show together, have we, Shawn?
No.
Like it could be anything.
I don't know why you're asking this trick question because they can't come up with an answer right off the top of their head, especially Shawn. He's like,
Well-
I can't think of an answer right
It
now.
could be like
I can.
it could be with you guys or separate.
Well, do you remember in World's Greatest Guy when we had that big argument off the top of the play about voicemail?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember? That was pretty funny. This was back in the day. This is like in the early 90s when we didn't have cell phones. Nobody had cell phones. So we wrote the play using landlines and voicemail. And my character was always forgetting what our password was. And so I remember saying, "What's our password?" And Sean's character would go, "It's our phone number." And I go, "No, I know our phone number, but what's the password?" He's like, "It's the phone number." And I could not get my head. And that's pretty much me in real life too. You know, anybody who knows me knows that I'm useless at like that kind of tech stuff. So I just remember that being a very funny moment between the two of us because it was quite true.
And some other really iconic moments or lines and words from that play were also, of course, all of the colors of the paint swatches when we were trying to choose the paint color for our characters. We're trying to choose the paint color for their apartment. And so we had fun satirizing the way that paint companies or any kind of color companies name the colors of like makeup or like paint. And so the paints were all like, what do you think of this one? It's like Dusty Blister. What was that? There were some other ones, Gary.
And there was one where where I said, "What do you think about this one?" And it was like a tone of gray. And I go, "Look, it's dolphin."
Dolphin.
And you were going, "That's not dolphin. That's like more like gray whale or porpoise." That's porpoise.
Oh, no.
Well, they're calling it dolphin, and it was around the time when those kinds of like really bizarre paint color names were coming into fashion, and so it was cool for Shawn and I to put that in a play and make fun of it because people started laughing like crazy because they went, "Oh yeah, that is what it's like." You know, you couldn't just go to a paint store and go, "I'd like gray. I want to paint something gray." They go, "Well, what shade of gray?" We've got dolphin, we've got porpoise, we've got humpback whale, we've got ash, whatever. It was pretty fun.
This is a odd question for you guys.
Uh-oh.
Do you guys get fans coming up to you and say, "Oh, can you please say that iconic line," or like please sign autograph or anything?
I mean, I can't speak for Gary, but I certainly don't. Nobody really has a clue who I am. So I'm just like, I'm not famous at all. So that's what most actors' lives are like. We are not recognized. Gary's recognized for Stargate. So I'm sure that people, when he goes to conferences, like the sci-fi cons, that people go, "Hey, open the Stargate." I'm sure they do, Gary.
They do. People have come up to me and said,
"Say Chevron. Say Chevron.
Say Chevron 1 is encoded or Chevron 7 locked." Like that line I said over and over and over. But strangely enough, Shawn, I've had people recognize me not from Stargate, but from theater sports like 25 years ago. And that one really blows my mind. Like, I don't understand that one. I was out the other day shopping. I had glasses, no hair, a COVID mask on. And I was talking to a guy working at the store and he said, "Are you an actor?" And I was like, "Yeah," with my mask on. I was like this. He goes, "Are you an actor?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh yeah. Did you used to do theater sports?" And I was like, okay, what is going on here? Like, how do you recognize me?
Maybe he's recognized you from a scene that you did where you just had your hand over your face the entire time.
and some fake funny horn rim glasses.
That's right. That you just grabbed from the props box. It's like, yeah. No.
I don't know.
No, it's true. It's true. Well, I hear what you're saying, Gary, because it was a long time ago, but at the same time, we were. That was a period in time in Vancouver, like that core group of improvisers. Those shows were sold out every weekend, every night, and a lot of people saw them, and we were recognized from that. People knew us from that. Yeah.
And people would come back to shows over and over.
Oh,
They
yeah.
wouldn't just see us once; they would see us many, 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 many times. So
Yeah.
we became very recognizable. And
Yeah.
yeah. So back in the day, yes, but I have to say that present day, I do not understand that.
Yeah, so he was definitely obviously an older gentleman who said this to you.
So yeah,
No, and that's another thing. He wasn't an older gentleman. He was a guy in his 40s. And he
Oh,
said,
so he
"I saw
came
you
as a
when
teenager.
I was a teenager." I'm like, what is happening? So funny.
yeah,
Sorry, Sorry,
yeah. And
Miranda.
as for Elliot and I, when we were in plays at the live performances at Stage Door Yearly Productions, he and I and the others would be like really recognized after every performance because they're cheering us on, saying how exciting it was, and then like one day someone came up to me about how my character was because I was actually a character of a witch called Schizorageous Outrageous, and or yeah, that one. And there's this woman who comes up to me and says and tells me how good I was and gives me a rose. I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? Because I don't plant flowers in my house.
But that's so cool that
And
happened.
I was wearing a white wig as part of my witch character.
Oh my God.
That is so cool that happened, though, because I mean that's one of the great things about performing, right? Is that you get that instant feedback from the audience right after a show that they saw you, and you get to hear from them what their experience was. So that's so cool.
That's right. Not only was that interesting, but also it shows that like people are seeing past what my challenge is. They don't recognize them epileptic because they think I'm just some ordinary person standing there doing my lines.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
don't think about the inside of what my challenge is at all because it just seems like it's not visible to people, and that's
right. Yeah.
How great is that?
part of what
they can-
Ellie and I are trying to prove to people that are actually in the public is to really see like just because we're this doesn't mean we're actually as challenged as people think and should be recognized.
Yeah, you want them to see you for who you are, and you are somebody who performs, and you do a lot of different things, and you have a rich, full life outside of your experience of the lived experience of your disability.
I have ever since a young child. Yeah. I've had to work really hard at like advocating for things I needed, as I said earlier, and things like that. So
yeah,
I've had to work all the way up to this point, especially with the recent podcast with Elliot, which was a brand new one for me because normally I just speak in front of audiences and I'm not scared.
Okay, his
and athletics. Trust it. So I just have a BCID and a services card, which I recently renewed myself. See? So there's another advocate thing I did myself.
Well done, Miranda. That's awesome. I just want to ask a quick question. Are you guys wearing diverse?
We're wearing these T-shirts.
What? Yeah. Those are fantastic.
They're really nice design.
So can people get those T-shirts?
Yeah, this is the headpiece in black, and Elliott's is the headpiece in white.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, thanks.
People can buy those T-shirts?
And Elliott has a notebook that he uses.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So where can they buy those T-shirts?
Online.
Websites.
On their website.
On your website, which is what?
It's diversestoriespodcast.com, Gary.
Yeah.
I happen to be on it right now.
Wow.
But I'm also podcast store. There we go.
Yeah, that's right. You click on that link, and then what you'll see is a little scroll of like black and white. So you click on the shirt because it's in the two different colors, and then you select your size, what color, the size, the color you want, and the number of shirts you want. And then according to the shirt, you'll either get the typical $29 or a bit more if it's 2 or 3 shirts.
Right.
And you don't have the notebook for sale on here.
No, that's just for Elliot so he can keep track of what he has for scheduling. Right. Because he wants to not remember to think like, oh, where did I put this? Because he wants to remember notes and not forget them.
So don't edit this part out. Make sure that you keep this part in about people ordering T-shirts, because the money
Yeah.
comes to you guys, and it helps you create your podcast. So it's very important that this part of the show be kept in.
Elliott,
What
okay?
do you guys would like to see in season 2 in the future?
I think they would answer correctly, yes, right, guys?
Of course.
For season 2.
Oh, would
Yes
we
to
like to see?
season
Would we
2.
like to see a season 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is
Yeah.
amazing that you guys do this. I'm so. I just admire you both so much for creating this entire place where people can come and talk and share, and it's lovely.
Interesting interview with you guys, and yeah. So as Elliott and I know, we're obviously trying to work on a take a couple of weeks off or whatever to try to start planning out season 2, and we'll see if we want to have you guys back on for season 2 or something, and add more guests on.
And we can always give you names of people that we know in the community that might be, don't you think, Shawn? Like that we know lots of people, directors and various people that we think might be really great guests for you. I'd be happy to.
And even with an organization I just joined called Bonaventures and Outreach Program for people with challenges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's in Nanaimo. So I go there and I showed them the podcast and they thought it was interesting. But another one I recently joined, I did a telephone conference meeting because it's too far away for me to travel there. It's on Pine Street area. And I emailed them the website of the podcast, and they said they would look at it, read it, because they're interested in looking at the episodes and stuff like that. And it's a YouTube link too. So it's not just like all audio. That's boring. That's typical audio boringness. So we want to put an end on that one and change it to also YouTube. So you don't just hear talking, because you don't know what you're going to hear with the talking. So
right, but don't forget though that there are going to be people who are like traveling in their car and they want to hear the podcast and they can't see it. So I would say I've listened to your podcast and without seeing it, and I would have to say that they are not boring. They're very exciting and interesting. So
I know. I know people sometimes watch it while listening to it while driving their car and stuff like that on audio. But I'm just saying, when you're at home or something like that in front of your computer, you can watch it on YouTube instead.
Great.
Shawn,
yes,
what Sam thinks about this podcast?
Well, until I got asked to do it, he like me, he didn't really know it existed. So I'll ask to get back to you after he gets a chance to listen to an episode or two.
Yeah. When I came up with the idea of this podcast, it was just trying to do something during the whole pandemic.
Right. Well, you're like anybody else who was stuck in the house, couldn't perform, had a creative drive, and you thought, how can I be creative and what can I do to answer the creative call? And I think you did a very admirable job of what you've done.
Yeah, and we initially wanted to have, I think, about 3 or something hosts, right, Elliott?
Yeah, 3 people we were thinking of.
Yeah. We wanted to have 3 people, but then there was a change of what, Elliott?
Change of direction. So
right.
One guy left.
Speaking of changing direction, I think we're coming to the end of this, aren't we?
Nope, not yet. No, it would be a arrow bar, yellow arrow that would say 9 minutes left, but we're still on red record.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if we've recorded so much that it might be hard to edit this because Elliott does all the editing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I really noticed when I listened to your podcast was just how when you guys are just riffing and talking and asking each other's questions, it's really interesting.
Well, I know I don't ask Elliot interview questions as much as he does with me, but that's
Right.
just the difference.
Well, it's a good chemistry that you have. It works well for the podcast,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I do say so myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So wait. What makes this podcast very good for you guys as people with no disabilities?
Yeah,
Oh.
we don't get much of an input from many guests with challenges. So that was the whole idea of bringing one of my friends over for an episode, and a teacher of Elliot's from his college and stuff like that.
So the
For
question,
views on people
yeah,
non-challenged.
yeah. Well, I mean, from my perspective as a non-disabled person, I feel like one of the things that we have to do in the non-disability community is to really hear more stories from people with a lived experience of disability. So, and we have so much to learn, and we make so many assumptions, and we are always wrong. And that's one thing I've learned a lot from working with artists with disabilities is that, you know, the lens through which we see the disability community is so skewed and off and the only way to really kind of get clear is to have having interactions, have a relationship with folks with disabilities. And so your podcast is perfect for that, because it allows the non-disability community to kind of hear what your experience is like and enjoy your banter and your connection. And it's a really important, I think, really important education moment for the non-disability community.
And I think too, building on what Shawn is saying, that the more you do it and the more you integrate people with non-disabilities into conversation with people with disabilities, you will start to create more of a normalized sense. It'll become more normalized as opposed to maybe what your experiences and what Shawn is talking about for our experiences, that it's almost like we're on opposite sides of a room, sort of looking at each other. And the more we talk, the more we sort of we all walk towards the middle of the room, so that we're meeting in the middle, and that becomes more of a normalized feeling, which is really what we want, which is inclusion and diversity and embracing everybody, and everybody just being part of one big mix, as opposed to going, oh, well, you've got challenges, so you're over there.
Yeah, that's what I've got with job search and stuff like that before in Vancouver and all that. And that's what prompted me to write an article in 2018 about job search in Vancouver for people with intellectual challenges. So there you go. Yeah. And also I was segregated a lot in high school too.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. I was actually put in a class called, and Elliot likes this because he says it's from the 80s, called strategies class. And that's where you had a teacher and you were modified into like having certain classes designed for accommodating people with disabilities. Sure, that's great. But that doesn't integrate you with the other classmates in other classrooms.
Going to work on more projects together in the future?
You never know. I'll tell you something, Elliot. I've collaborated a lot in my life, and Gary is like my first real collaborative partner. Like, we did a lot of work together, in those, throughout the 90s. And then, I think part of what happened for me was that I got really into, when I wrote my first play, like the first play that I wrote by myself, it was really important for me to kind of like tell that story. And it was a story that it was about it was a personal story, and it was sort of like about my background. Excuse me. And so it was really important for me to to do that and to kind of like make sure that I was, you know, honoring the stories that were coming out of me. And so I've been kind of a little bit less jumping on board with collaborations. Although I am, as I say that, I'm just realizing that I've been collaborating with somebody on this giant musical project, but I got paid to do that one. So that was the difference. So yeah, for me, like at this point in my career, like I'm more drawn to the stories that are kind of like bubbling up in me that I feel like I have to tell as a sort of that are part of my identity, and less I collaboration for me is really, it's getting harder and harder. Like this project that I just mentioned, it's not, if I hadn't been paid for it, there's no way that I would do it, because it was that particular one, and it's not anything like my experience collaborating with Gary, but it was really hard. So I'm a little bit focused on, I'm kind of like, it's a little bit selfish, but it's a little bit me right now, when it comes to writing anyway.
Right, right. And I would say, I would say that I very much love collaborating. I'm collaborating on a few projects with with different people, not the same people. And what I like is the idea of shifting gears based on who that person is. So depending on the project and the person, I will be drawn to that. If I have a kind of a cool idea and I start to collaborate with somebody and it doesn't really click, then I won't do that project with that person, because collaborating it really works well for me. And I will say that if something came along that naturally fit with Shawn and I, outside of, you know, what all the stuff that Shawn is doing for himself, if something came our way and we both went, oh my God, wouldn't this be fun to do at this point together? There would be a good. I would love to work with Shawn again, because I know Shawn so well and I've worked with him before, and I kind of know how fun it is. For me, there's like the fun factor is huge. If I'm going to have fun, I would work with Shawn in a heartbeat.
You know what would be like, what would be so fun and awesome for us is if somebody with a lot of money came to us and said, we want you guys to be on our writing team and write for this show. And we like, then it would just be amazing, because I know that we would crank out some hilarious material, like writing on a series together. I mean, that would be
like in a writing room together, because we have all this history and all this chemistry that would get really fun to do.
Interesting. If my mentor and I did another project together, like on the island or whatever, I would be into doing it with her, because she was really fun to work with.
Yeah.
When I did my writer documentary that Gary and Elliott watched, and Elliott did the music helping part of it. So yeah.
Oh, Miranda, just speaking of which, I was thinking about that just recently. Shawn, you have to see the short film that Miranda wrote and made about horses and riding. It is so beautiful. It's a short film. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. I was really blown away. And you should get Shawn's email, which I think you have, but try and send that to him, because I think Shawn would really enjoy seeing your work on your own, Miranda. Because
I don't have his email. All I have is his name from Elliott, not the email.
I was sent to you.
Yeah.
Okay, you can text me the email, Elliott.
Yeah,
thanks.
I will.
And so will you send me like just a link to it? Is that what
it's just the document. It's just the Google link thing.
Right.
I'll just be emailing you.
Just so beautiful.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's really
about like 7 minutes long, and it's black and white. Kind of like not in the current time, because we want it to be kind of contrast to what modern video stuff, recording stuff is about.
It's very, Shawn, it's so great. It's so dreamy.
And I had so many good reviews on that one.
Yeah.
from my mentor's friend who said she was so angry over the fact that there were limited resources for people with disabilities of whatever type, and limited things about and like there's very and things I said really reveal the I forgot what the name was, but the friend really liked my show, and I think she came to watch it, or maybe I'm not sure if the friend came to watch it, but maybe she did in the premiere in downtown where Elliott came to watch as well.
That's where I saw it. That's where I first saw it. There was they showed a whole bunch of short films made by people with disabilities, and it was just fantastic. Really great.
When-
Yeah, two other participants from production place did the documentaries as well, but mine just happened to be really interesting for this an interesting idea to do. And I was paired up with a really good mentor, and that was it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I did the music stuff for her film,
And it was 4 months.
yeah, 4 months to do the right.
Wow.
music.
Yeah.
It took about like 4 months to do that documentary because it was so long, and yeah.
If anything, if people can get anything from this podcast, I hope they get the fact of the things that you and Elliott can do.
Yeah.
That people just would not know. Elliott is great at putting soundtracks together. I know he's a really creative guy. He's always thinking up shows, and Miranda, you made a film, and I just love hearing all this stuff, and I hope that this gets out to a much wider audience so that people understand that it doesn't matter that you've got disabilities. You work around it, you work with it, and Shawn and I would consider you two both part of our creative community, right, Shawn? Like they're in there. That you are in there with what we do. You're doing exactly what Shawn and I do. We dream up shows, we work with people, we do things together. Oh, it looks like our time is about to run out.
Yeah, and I have a couple other things I might email you, Shawn, as well. Like I have on the Possibilities website, there is a brief description on what each documentary thing is about. And it's on the Possibilities news and stuff like that. So I'll just look for the year and where it's under, and then I'll email that to you as well, so it doesn't look like I'm emailing you just one thing.
Yeah, that sounds great, Miranda. Thank you. And
whatever
Gary,
is possible. Yeah.
Yeah, Gary, there's about 3 minutes left. Would you like to launch into an impossibly long story and see if you can jam it in?
No. Elliott, that is gonna conclude our first season of our podcast show, and we hope to create a really good second season with more guests or reoccurring guests, and making our store a bit wider in terms of selling more things like stickers or something, and whatever's interesting. And we'll
Thank you
just
so
keep
much
things
for having
going
us on the
to
show.
make
Thank
this
you
wide.
for having me, and it was an honor to be on your podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much. So great to chat with you.
Yeah.
Good to see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, tell your friends about this, okay?
Will do. Yeah, for
We
sure.
will.
And we always encourage people to email us with questions or whatever, and subscribe, right, Elliott?
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Right.
Okay, bye guys.
All right, bye
Thanks so
guys.
much.
It was good
Ciao.
meeting you, Shawn.
Bye. Nice to meet
bye.
you, Miranda. Bye.